Zakat on commercial goods. 41. All types of commercial goods are subject to zakat. Commercial goods may include goods known as URUZ and fabrics, as well as products such as wheat, barley, and rice, and heavy items such as iron, copper, tin. Animals such as sheep, camels, and horses, and income-generating assets such as houses, shops, and inns. Rental income from properties used for commerce, buying and selling, is also considered commercial income. It is not a requirement that the income derived from these commercial properties be intended for commercial purposes. 42 assets that reach the NISAB threshold at the beginning of the year, whose value is at least 200 dirhams of silver or 20 miskals of gold. For the zakat on commercial goods, their value at the end of the year is taken into account, and zakat is paid accordingly. If these values fall below the NISAB amount, no zakat is due. Fluctuations in value during the middle of the year have no effect. For livestock kept for trade, neither the number of animals nor whether they are breeding stock is taken into account. In all cases, their value is taken as the basis. 43. The value of commercial goods at the end of the year is assessed according to the market price and their location. Owners are free to determine this value. If they wish, they may determine these values in gold, or if they prefer, in silver. However, if the amount reaches the NISAB threshold according to one of these, but does not reach it according to the other, zakat must be paid based on the value that reaches the NISAB threshold. For example, if the value of a commercial good is equal to 200 dirhams of silver, but is not equal to 20 miskals of gold and is less than that, zakat on that good is paid after calculating it, since the NISAB has been met. 44. The intention to trade must accompany the act of trading. Property acquired with an intention detached from such a business activity is not considered to be for commercial purposes. Accordingly, if a person intends to engage in commerce when purchasing property or giving it to someone else for sale, that property is considered to be for commercial purposes. However, if a person intends to engage in commerce regarding property inherited, donated, or transferred through a will, that property does not become intended for commercial purposes merely by that intention. This is the view of Imam Muhammad. However, according to Imam Abu Yusuf, if a person accepts property that has been donated or bequeathed to them with the intention of trading, that property becomes intended for trade, because commerce is a contract entered into for the purpose of making a profit. As for something that would not become part of one's property without one's acceptance, it becomes a source of profit upon acceptance. Thus, the presence of the intent to trade in this transaction is valid. 45. If a set of goods or quantity of grain-like commodities which were not originally purchased with the intent to trade or stored for future sale, they are not considered trade goods. Therefore, zakat is not required on these items even if a year has passed. 46. If the value of a commercial good, which is measured, weighed, or counted, is expected to increase or decrease after the end of the year, this is not taken into account. Rather, the value at the end of the full year is considered, and zakat is paid accordingly. Example, if a stock of 40 camels, worth 100,000 lira from the beginning to the end of the year, increases to 120,000 lira or decreases to 80,000 lira after the end of the year, this change is ignored, and zakat is paid based on the value of 100,000 lira at the exact end of the year. Accordingly, if zakat is not paid as 1/4 of the goods themselves, it is paid as 1/4 of the value of 100,000 lira. 47. If trade goods are to be exchanged within a year for goods of the same or different types, the 1-year period is not interrupted. Zakat must still be paid at the end of the year. The same rule applies to the exchange of currency. Example, if a person possesses merchandise worth at least 200 dirhams of silver at the beginning of the year, or has currency of that value, the situation is assessed when they use these to purchase another type of merchandise in the middle of the year. If this goods in hand is still worth 200 dirhams of silver or more at the end of the year, it is subject to Zakat. 4.8 for non-commercial livestock, even if they are to be exchanged during the year, whether for animals of the same species or of a different species. The provisions applicable from the beginning of the year nitrogen monoxide longer apply. Zakat is not due on property or cash acquired through exchange until 1 year has passed from the date of the exchange. Example: if 40 grazing sheep are given to someone else during the year and, in their place, 40 more grazing sheep or 5 camels are acquired, Zakat is not due on them until 1 year has passed since their acquisition. This is because the Zakat to be collected from livestock is valid only on the original animals themselves. The livestock acquired in exchange for them, however, are not the same as the previous ones. However, in the case of commercial goods, this identity is not considered. In these cases, only the cost is relevant. In commerce, such a change is a desirable principle and does not contradict this cost. However, if these livestock are to be exchanged for currency, whether before or after Zakat has been paid, and the person has other currency amounts equal to the NISAB threshold in their possession, these cash amounts are added together. When 1 year has passed since the principal amount reached the NISAB threshold, the money obtained from the animals is also added to it, and Zakat is paid in full. This rule also applies if the NISAB amount consists of trade goods. According to Imam Zufar, if these animals designated for Sama are replaced with animals of the same kind, this replacement does not affect the ruling regarding the period. Zakat must still be paid at the end of the same year, regardless of the date of the exchange. According to Imam Shafi as well, whether the animals are exchanged for others of the same kind or for animals of a different kind, the period is not interrupted. 49. Domestic animals raised in pastures or on permissible grazing lands for commercial purposes are not subject to the Zakat on grazing livestock. Rather, like other commercial goods, they are subject to Zakat at a rate of 1/40 of their value. However, if it is later intended that they be raised solely for the purpose of harvesting their milk or offspring, then they become subject to Zakat on livestock, and the Zakat period begins on the date of this intention and becomes effective at the end of a full year. Thus, at the end of the year, the Zakat is paid as Zakat on livestock. Public grazing lands refer to areas designated for all people to graze their animals free of charge without payment or rent.